Hey, Bryce Tubbs here. Today I want to share with you how to sign up more clients who are facing fear-based objections. Okay, so this is for accountants and bookkeepers. You get to the end of your call, you say your price point, and the person just suddenly just changes and transforms into a different person. So before we go any further, if you want some help growing your accounting or bookkeeping business, maybe you've been trying to grow it on your own, but just not quite going to plan. Maybe things are moving a little bit slower than what you anticipated. You anticipated that you had like a great launch coming out the gates, but it didn't quite happen. Or maybe you're doing okay, but you want to go take it to that next level. I just invite you to go ahead and click on the link inside the description below to book a call with me to see if I can help you out. Now, kind of diving back into this. So this video was made based on, I got a question from a student inside the mentorship program, and the person was a very new student. The person said, Bryce, so I was using the consultation call script that you gave me, and all through the call the person was like, oh, this is awesome, this is awesome, this is awesome, this is awesome, this is awesome. Then right at the end when I said the price, they totally transformed into a different person. Like everything they told me before the call was no longer true. They told me that they wanted to get started today, money was no object. And when I asked them, did you ever see whether or not they had tried, doing this solution in the past? Like, had they hired a bookkeeper or CPA or an accountant or CFO in the past? And he said, yeah, they actually fired their bookkeeper 2 weeks ago. And that's why they got on the phone with me. And I was like, huh. So, do we ever dig into what happens if they bring you on and they think a mistake happens? And she says, no, I didn't think about that. So today I just kind of want to share how to really dissect those fear-based objections. Maybe you have someone that's been burned in the past, how to handle that. And let's dive into this thing real quick. This conception that most people have is that business owners are these all-knowing individuals that are these just people who are different than you or myself, right? And they come across as cold or unapproachable. And when you're first getting started, sometimes that can bring in a lot of fear. So you don't want to either make a mistake, you don't want to come across like you don't know what you're talking about, you don't want to come across like you're incompetent, and that puts a lot of pressure on you, right? Now, the misconception is there are a lot of business owners that maybe have put their faith in either a bookkeeper, a CFO, or CPA in the past, and that person might have let them down. So what's actually happening is they are afraid that if they were to put themselves out there again, trust that, someone else might be able to do the work, there's a huge chance they could actually make a mistake. And they'll be worse off than when they first met you. That's a very, very big hang up that a lot of business owners have. Now, how this generally materialized is at the end of the consultation, they were saying, the whole time, it's this is amazing, this is what I need, I'm super excited to work with you, this is great, let's get started tomorrow. And then you say the price, and there's oh, I need to think about it. And it's every single thing they just said up until the point of when you drop the price was amazing. You thought it was a done deal. But as soon as you say the price, then it's just all these kind of things kind of pop up. And how you can kind of identify two things. Number one is you can identify that it's a fear-based objection based on if they give you a question or statement about why they can't get started right now, you problem solve that with them, and then a new thing comes up. So for example, let's say they have to go talk to the dog, and then you guys walk to a logical conclusion that it doesn't really make sense to talk to your dog because they can't really speak English back. Right? And they're like, oh, well, that's true, that makes sense. They agree with you, and they say, well, right now it's cash flow is tight. Okay, then you problem solve. You're like, well, I know based on your finances, because I've looked at your books before I made this quote, you guys are, number one, you have $1 million in cash, and you have another loan that's coming in in 2 weeks, right? Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like you guys have the cash to be able to pay my $1,000 a month retainer, right? And then you're like, yeah. And then if they keep switching and rotating, every single time you overcome something, it's a new thing comes up. It's generally more that they're just gun shy. They're afraid to pull the trigger because, again, they don't want to make that mistake. So what we have to be thinking about is Number one, understanding what the objection is. Is it like a logistical, like a real logistical thing where they have like a signed agreement with their current business partner that they can't move forward unless they both have done like a conference or they both have like met with you? Or is it more of like they're using it as a smokescreen to kind of save face, get off the phone, recompose themselves, and then maybe think about doing it with somebody else or with you maybe in the future? If you can understand that, it makes this whole process a lot easier. Now, I will start making more videos around more detailed sales topics. I do get a lot of questions asked about that, so I'm going to start breaking that down deeper. Now, after you've identified that it is a fear-based objection, like they're just gun shy, they just don't want to make a mistake, then what you need to be thinking about is how to be persuasive. So, there's a difference between being salesy and being persuasive. Now, a lot of people have this misconception because I always hear this thing like, I don't want to be a used car salesperson. And I'm like, well, it's not really the same thing in this case because they got on this call to buy something from you. And if you do the consultation call like I teach you guys inside of my training program, by the end of the call, you should have already gotten their buy-in that they actually still want to work with you. So you're already checking, and it's not salesy because they've already agreed that this is a thing they really want to do. This is the only solution they see. This is why they think that the price is good. But then there's something else. So whenever we're trying to be persuasive, you persuade people based on talking about life and the way decisions are made in general. If you're being salesy, you're trying to persuade and convince the person why they should buy your product. A little bit of a difference. Number one, persuasion is about showing and changing the way people make decisions. Salesy is about pushing a product. Now, Bryce, those are one in the same, and I completely understand. When I first heard this principle, I was so confused. I was like, that doesn't make any kind of sense. The reason why there's a difference is because when you're pushing the product, it constantly feels like it's an argument because now you're disagreeing. They're saying it's not the right time, and you're saying this is totally the right time to do it. That causes an argument. So now it's you versus them. When you're using analogies about life, it's you and them are on the same team, overcoming their fears, their pains, and their problems. It's really about which side of the table are you sitting on. Are you against them? When you're trying to push your product, you're against them because you're pushing something that they're saying they don't really want, right? So it's them and their fears versus you when you're pushing your product. When you are using analogies, stories, and combating the way they make decisions, it is you plus the business owner against their fear. Now, once we've gotten on that side of the table, you need to understand that analogies, the reason why they work so effectively is because most people have grown up on stories. They like movies, they like TV shows, their parents might have read them bedtime stories, they might read bedtime stories to their children. They make PowerPoint presentations, which are just stories, they read books. Everything is about stories, and people have been programmed in life to be able to learn and take away pieces of information based on stories. Now, if you tell someone a good story and they come to the conclusion that the way that they are making decisions is based on a false pretense or something that they cannot necessarily control, and getting more information or taking a breather is not going to change the decision that is in front of them or the ability to make the decision that is in front of them, now they've came to the conclusion on their own that this is the right thing to do. Once they have made that conclusion, you're no longer even trying to push a product because they're going to say things like, okay, I understand. Okay, I just had a breakthrough. Like, you literally hear, they'll be sitting there, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, that makes sense. And they're like, while you were talking, I just thought about this, and I don't know why I never thought of this before, but like, yeah, like that makes total sense why I should like get this thing taken care of, because the whole reason why I even got on the call is I don't really have enough time to do this stuff, and by taking more time to do this stuff, that's going to add more to my plate, which I already don't have a lot of time for. And then, yeah, so, okay, that makes sense. So, okay, so why don't we get started? And they actually ask you, why can't we get started? Why don't we get started? From there, you just send them the invoice and you make sure that you can do it two ways. If you're doing, taking payment over the phone, you want to send the invoice and like get the payment first, and then you can have the engagement letter second. Whenever I give like people inside of the mentorship program, like we have like a proposal template built into the way that we talk to people. So they've already basically gotten a proposal that they can sign off on, and then they can pay us some money while they're still there. And it basically acts like a contract, and then you send them the official one after payment is completed. Now, it's just so much easier. So much easier. I wish I had known this probably like if I had known this like when I first got started with my accounting firm, like dude, that would have been such a game changer. And it's funny. I was talking to this one individual, and the person asked like, why should I join a mentorship program like yours, Bryce? And they're like, I can do it on my own. I'm like, yeah, you can probably do it on your own. It's just like, do you really have the time, number one, to dedicate to condensing, you probably only have like 2 to 3 hours a day to get good at a skill that other people are doing full time. And you're going to learn it, on your own, but you can't really see exactly like what are the blind spots. Like this video I'm talking about, this video actually cost me about $14,000. $14,000, right? Because I had to get a sales coach to actually like sit there with me and analyze my videos, analyze my consultations. We would just do so much stuff together to make sure like I really understood, because like literally we had like so many coaching sessions where he would like tell me this principle and it just wouldn't click. And this is when I was working with someone directly to solve this problem that I was actively seeing but just couldn't wrap my mind around. Now, could you imagine if I tried to figure that thing out my own? It would take so long, right? But the main thing there is more about like time, right? Because yeah, you can figure it out. But at the same time, it's like, why would you want to waste your time to do it? You might as well just spend money, join a mentorship program, get everything condensed. Like you're getting 7+ years condensed into a 6-month training program. 6 months is the average length that it takes for someone to complete the program. Now we do it 6 months because to be honest, it's kind of overkill. We used to do the program for 60 days, and that's where like a lot of the oldest testimonials came from, where they'd be like at $7,000 a month, and that was like in a 60-day period. Now we do is a 6-month period. Number one, because I want to create more long-term relationships. Number two, it makes it easier for me to get referrals the longer that I work with someone, because then like as I get more successful, I just keep telling more and more and more people. So it just makes sense to keep the program a little bit longer. But it's just one of those things where you just condense that time. You don't have to make a lot of mistakes, and then you're able to really go get your goal. A lot of people overestimate their ability to stick into something that's not working, right? Like whenever I hear someone say like a DIY, it's almost like, ooh, you don't really understand time. You don't really understand the value of skill, because when you're trying to start a business and you're going at it alone, you have to learn all these different skills. You have to learn how to price your service. You have to learn how to market to get the right people in front of you. Not just get leads, but get the right leads. Then you have to do sales, right? And sales, man, there's so many different things you got to learn within that. Now, if you're learning that from scratch, you're not really making income outside of your job, right? And the thing that you're dealing with, even though you might not be losing money, you have an opportunity cost where you could be spending that same time with your children, doing hobbies, spending more time with your significant other. So in the beginning, when you're doing it on your own, you're not really getting a return on this. So all these other things in your life are pulling on you. And they're saying, you love this thing that's not making any more money more than us. And that can pull on you, man. That can pull on you. So if instead you learn how to get this thing successful, you get it under 6 months, you go reach your financial goals, now you're doing this thing full time. Okay, so now you're doing this full time instead of working your job, and you get to spend that time with your family. Because this business, when you hit your goals, it doesn't have to take 40, 50, 60 hours a week. A lot of the students get 20 to 35 hours per week is what they spend on their business. And most of them spend the 35 hours because they actually enjoy it. And they're used to working 50 hours of their job. So when they're able to, save about 15 hours on their work week, they're ecstatic. right? But you don't have to go through that fire. You don't have to strain the relationships with your family. You don't have to really go and, face failure. You have the best chance of success when you go with somebody else. Now, if you want help, I completely understand. I've gotten a lot of help over my career. I spent about anywhere between $35,000 to $60,000 per year on courses, programs, and masterminds. I know where you're coming from. If you want some help, go ahead and click on the link inside of the description below to book a call to see if I can help you. If you're not quite ready, if it's more you just don't want to spend the money right now, it's okay. If it's more like you're just more fearful, you're like, what if this thing couldn't work? What happens if it doesn't work? And I just want to ask you, what happens if it did work? You never know, man. All I know is you're going to put yourself in the best position possible. We've done it with over 150 students in the past. Maybe you're a good fit as well. I personally don't know until I speak with you, but I want to make sure you're a good fit. If it works, I think you can make it work. Then we can talk pricing. We can talk about onboarding, what the process looks like. If I personally don't think that your situation is conducive for the way that we go and get, results, I'm going to tell you that also, because I want to make sure we keep our success rate extremely high. We only want to work with high-level individuals who are serious about growing their business. And when I say serious, that does not mean that it has to be a full-time thing. It's just more you want to utilize information I give you, you're going to implement on it to whatever your goal is, and you're going to come back and you're going to reach it. That's what we're looking for when we talk about a client who's serious. So if that's you, I'll see you on the call. Not quite ready? That's A-okay too. I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy. Talk to you soon.